This is another edition of Frontier Opening Bell. I am Bosun Amofaye and I welcome everyone, my guests in particular, to the show. Ali Khan Sacho, the CEO and founder at Rich Frontiers Management in Nairobi, Kenya. Good morning, Ali. It's good to have you on the program today.
A pleasure, boss.
Thank you very much. In Lagos, Nigeria, Ayodeji Ebo, who is the CEO and chartered trader at Afrinvest Securities Limited. Ayodeji, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate having you here. And of course, Ijema Onyeka, who is industrial goods analyst at Vertiva Capital Management, one of the investment banks and licensed securities trader.
Morning, Bosun. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ijema, it's a pleasure to have you. Let's hit the ground running. Yesterday, the Nigerian markets, the Nigerian equities took a beating, 1.27%. That's a major decline on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. All share index, but we'll unpack that in a short while with our analysts to give us a bit of a breakdown of some of the sectoral performances yesterday, despite the 1.27% decline on the Nigerian bourse. Meantime, we have a few other stories across some of the markets within the region. This is how Ivory Coast, the BRVM, finished negative as well, about 0.5%. The Egyptian market was up 1.17%. The star performer on the continent on Monday, the Kenyan NSE was flat. South Africa GSE was 0.6% in the positive territory. Let's cross quickly to East Africa, where Nairobi Securities Exchange, you can see the volume there yesterday, despite the fact that that particular exchange finished off in the negative territory. Then, of course, we have the Equity Group, which is one of the largest financial services company, says it's taking over about 20 million Kenyan shillings of East African cables. Scan Group, WPP, is declaring a special interim dividend of about 8 shillings in Kenya. Rwanda Stock Exchange, a very small bourse, says it's listing 2 new companies. And of course, we have Uganda's inflation at 4.1%, the highest since 2017. Ali, this is your show. This is your market. Take it.
So just to speak through headlines, Nairobi Stock Exchange, that's turnover about $5.5 million to give you a feel. A little bit higher. Volumes have actually been pretty low at the stock exchange, so a little bit more activity. Equity Group, as you said, the second biggest bank in Kenya. This is the iconic Dr. James Mwangi, the CEO. They've expanded as far as the Congo. The story about East African Cables is East African Cables was a big cable provider to the power companies and has fallen on hard times. Equity Bank, their biggest lender, obviously now looking to step in and probably look at how they can restructure East African Cables. It was one of the worst performing shares last year at the stock exchange, down about 70%. And I think this has been coming for a little while, Bosun. WPP Scan Group is our biggest advertising company stroke agency in East Africa. They expanded actually into Nigeria and into West Africa a few years ago. But what they've done is offloaded one of their subsidiaries, Millward Brown, and are paying the entire or practically the entire proceeds out as a special interim dividend. The share price has jumped 34% this morning at the Nairobi Stock Exchange because of that cash payment that investors will receive. There's been some commentary saying that obviously they don't see opportunity for investment. And a few people are saying this is actually a bearish signal about the advertising market, but investors will be happy to receive the cash. Rwanda Stock Exchange, 2 companies. Look, you know, it's very well managed. It's a small bourse, but I think you'll increasingly see them attract a lot of this type of business. You know, they run a tight ship, well organized, aggressive. You see that in so many different areas in the Rwanda Inc. Business line, and I expect more to come that way. Uganda inflation, 4.1%, but still very subdued, although it's the highest since October 2017. And just to make two additional points to you, we saw a 7-day internet lockdown open up in Ethiopia last night in the evening. It's not fully open, but you can get in touch with people. That situation remains quite fragile. That's just to the north of us. And then Zimbabwe, a lot of backlash about the fact that they've shut down the stock exchange. People are very unhappy and really saying that, you know, they've trapped all this capital. And to me, it's a tipping point. The day you close down your stock market, you are sending a very, very bad signal to investors, whether they are your own domestic ones or international ones. And I think it speaks to a very bad a situation and a potential denouement. The stock exchange CEO said he hopes to open it up as quickly as possible, and I think we all hope the same.
Yes, thank you so much, Ali. So let's take on the Nigerian markets, where it was 1.27% decline on the all-share index to start their brand new week. Of course, Nigeria's banks and insurance sidestepped that. And a bigger story from PwC Nigeria says COVID-19 demand-supply shocks will keep Nigeria's inflation higher and much longer. And still talking foreign exchange, Ghana is looking to legalize domestic FX trading by the year 2021. But let's drill down a little bit more on the Nigeria's Monday trading day. Let me ask Kayode Jebo at Afrinvest Securities what his thoughts are around the banking sector and insurance, whose indices were positive on Monday despite the decline in the broader market.
Okay, thanks, Wasim. What we saw was bargain hunting, and in some of the top banking stocks. We're all aware that for most of the banks have announced that their board already meeting to discuss the Q2 performance, or what we may also call the combined H1 2020 performance. So for some of the investors, we saw significant sell-off last week in most of these major banking stocks, and that presented opportunity for new entrants for investors. So basically, it's really nothing much to cheer about because we would still expect that there will still be sideways trading until we're able to see how much of impact COVID-19 have had on their performance. You know, that would really show the Q2 results will really capture that impact, and we expect that we'll see that as a worst case scenario, and with the expectant of a better Q3 and Q4 as we progress.
Great story with the banking sector. It needs to be in very sharp focus for investors. But again, what's biting the industrial goods sector took a very strong beating, about 3% yesterday. Ijeoma Onyeka at Vertiva Capital. What's the story around this?
Well, we're basically seeing a lot of profits taken across the industrial goods space. We recall that from around May, we saw strong gains on some of the industrial goods counters. Basically, we are seeing investors take profits on some of those names, particularly BUA Cement and Dangote Cement. I also want to point out that, you know, with the issues concerning Nigeria's financing situation, especially with regards to our capital spending, and also with the real estate sector expected to continue to decline, the short to medium term outlook for the Nigerian cement players is not very strong, and we are basically seeing investors react to that. However, there was some news on BUA Cement yesterday, which might impact activity in the market today. We know that yesterday, Bua Cement announced that they will be constructing a 3 million metric ton plant in Adamawa State, as well as a 50 megawatt power plant also in that state, basically to power the plant and the surrounding communities. And it's basically a double play for Bua Cement. Because they are basically trying to take advantage of the long overdue renaissance in the Northeast Nigerian market, which has basically been where growth has been significantly halted by unrest and tensions and security tensions, and they are also making a play on the export market to Chad, Eastern Niger and Cameroon, and the Cameroonian markets, which all border the Adamawa state. This is very similar to what we've seen Bua Cement do in Kalambina, where they made a double play for the northwestern market and the Benin and Western Niger and the Western Niger markets. They have been largely successful in that space, and there's no reason to expect that they will not be successful in this also. However, there is one natural loser in this, and this is going to be WACO. WACO is the only player that currently plays in the northeastern space with the Ashaka Cement plant in Gombe. However, the Ashaka Cement plant is a very old plant that has been running for quite some time with very limited capacity, and so will be inefficient compared to the ultra-modern plant that Cement is looking to produce, and they would likely struggle to compete with Bua Cement in the market, as they have been struggling to compete with Bua Cement in the south and in the northwestern market.
Yes, interesting. Around the Nigeria cement space, the struggle for market dominance across the parts of the country. The Southern African markets finished off yesterday slightly in the green. The rand broke through the 16 handle on the US dollar, came back, finished up around 17, but the stock market maintained its positive momentum. Meantime, Botswana's economy grows 2.6% year on year in first quarter, better than 1.6% in the final quarter of last year. In Namibia, the stock exchange, the new gold issues 600,000 debenture for about 284 South African rand per unit. And Angola says it's invested a massive $23 billion in the electricity sector by the year 2025. Ali, what's your take on this?
So firstly, South African rand finding resistance at the 16 handle. But obviously positive spillover from Chinese markets in a bull market, and from the Dow. It's a little bit like the Australian dollar, risk on, everyone wants to buy the rand. Johannesburg Stock Exchange doing well. When you look at it in local currency terms, obviously not so well in dollar terms because of the big currency adjustment, but essentially people willing to take on more risk. There's a big issue of government bonds coming that came where the central bank bought quite a bit of those bonds. So I think for now, as long as we see a sort of benign equity market environment globally, it will be supportive for South African assets, notwithstanding the underlying dynamics of the economy, which is slow and remains in the slow lane. Botswana, that's interesting, 2.6% year-on-year first quarter. That took me by surprise. Obviously, that's kind of looking in the rearview mirror because that period was before the lockdown and before Botswana took action. But remember, Botswana so far has been relatively well shielded, notwithstanding the fact that the president's gone into quarantine, I think, almost as many times as the Ghanaian president. But so far, he's been all right. Namibia, Newmont, gold. Look, gold is red hot these days. We're in a rampant money printing world, Boasson. Everyone's looking for a safe haven asset. If gold can't rally in this environment, it never will. I think gold is going a lot higher because of what I described. Angola to invest $23 billion in the electricity sector look, that's just simply not believable. There is no way Angola can get their hands on $23 billion. The balance sheet is shot to bits. So much depends on a return in the oil price. And there's simply not that kind of money available to Angola right now. They've got to restructure their debts. They've started with that. I think China, though I haven't seen it confirmed, said that they're going to reschedule about the same amount in debt. It's about 23 billion. So for now, I think Angolan policymakers need to talk straight to the market as opposed to, putting up these sort of things.
Really tough. I agree with you, Ali. It's going to be really, really tough. But again, if you look at the North African markets, there's been a raft of treasury bills and treasury bonds offering. Look at Egypt issuing 21 billion Egyptian pounds in treasury bills and bonds. PMI jumped 44 to 44.6 in June. That's still below this 50 expansion region. If you look at Tunisia, the June inflation figure is to 5.8%. Outside North Africa, DRC and Cameroon are all in the market as well, looking for raising treasury bonds and doing auctions. So this is a story familiar to the Nigerian market, isn't it? Where the Nigerian authorities been very active the fixed income space. What is this story all about? Everybody looking for money. Here.
I feel that we, because of the liquidity in the system, or I would say more maturities, so and limited alternative for most portfolio managers, we have continued to see that increasing interest for government bills and bonds. So we feel that will be sustained. In a challenging year like this, we know governments have also, they are unable to, because of some of the, compounded with some of the challenges of FX, they are unable to look at the foreign market to raise funds. And now the focus is more of raising funds within the country. So we'll continue to see more interest in fixed income investments because of the limited alternative. What we expect to see very soon now is, from one angle, the corporates taking advantage of this low interest rate environment to restructure their balance sheet and raise either short-term and long-term capital. The short-term for their working capital and the long-term for expansion. We are all looking at 2021, Nigeria should be able to rebound and should be out of recession. And also, when you also look at some of these companies, it's, we've always been talking about the crowding out effect. Now interest rates looks more attractive, and this is the time for them to take advantage of that. On the other hand, the fund managers now need to be also very ingenious to come up with very structured products across the real sector, agri, real estate. And based on that, there's not a lot of funds that will be willing to invest in such fund at this moment because of the limited alternatives and the maturities. We are still expecting about 6 trillion worth of maturities before the end of the year, which is very significant.
Okay, it's a big story for African central banks about fixed income treasury bills and treasury bonds in Ghana, in Kenya, in everywhere, in Egypt as well. It's a big story around the treasury bills and auctions market. Everyone's looking for big money, and if rates are cheap, why not take it all on board right now while you can use this money, of course, within the pandemic period. Thank you very much for today being on the show. Thank you so much, Ayode Jebo of Afrinvest. Thank you very much, Ali Kansachu, CEO and founder at Rich Frontiers Management. Thank you very much for being here on the show every day. A goods analyst. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you again tomorrow, Wednesday. Bye for now. I'm from Frontier Africa Reports. I am Bosin Amafaye. Thank you very much.